Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoldFish Report. I'm your host, Louisa. Today is November 22nd, 2017. The reason I had to look up the year is because I was thinking 63 all day. This is a special GoldFish Report with a very special guest. We have Santos Bonacci with us today. Santos, welcome to the GoldFish Report.
Oh, thanks, Louisa. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
And we also have co-hosting with me today our systems researcher for the GoldFish Report, our friend Martin. And so, Martin, welcome also, and thanks for co-hosting with me today.
Thanks, Louisa. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is going to be a very interesting conversation, folks. We have researchers, and we're all researchers, really, the three of us. But Mr. Bonacci, Santos has a very special area of, I would say, philosophy called syncretism, which he's going to explain to us. And I'm also going to put links in the description section for all the references that we make today, so just so folks know to look out for that. But if you could just start us out, Santos, with the idea of syncretism for people who might not be familiar with it, could you just give us a little idea of what that entails?
Okay, yes. Well, the first part of the word sync is dealing with bringing things together, syncretizing. There are such words as synchronicity, which means syncing in time, symphony, which means harmony together. Excuse me, I'm just trying to get this board best possible if I have to use my board.
Yeah, looks good.
So to syncretize is to sync things up in your head and in your heart. You know, when you say to say the alphabet off by heart, so you memorize, you sync all systems. Syncretize is synonymous, or the brother or sister of synchronous. So it's very nice when you bump into someone and three or four things conspire to make a pleasant event, and you call that a serendipitous or synchronous event, and you're happy with that. So the way of the world is to make all the sciences separate and divided by the philosophy of divide and conquer. Syncretize is the enemy of empire, and empire is what is ruling the world today, stripping living beings, living souls of their sovereignty and their rights through misuse of God's letters, the alphabet, the English letter being one of the greatest angelish. English is angelish languages. So what we do with syncretism is we show, for instance, above me are the runes, the Nordic runes. There are 26 of those. Mm-hmm. Yep, and as you can see, they are the same as the English alphabet. And you'll see, for instance, hiding here, there's Christ in the runes, C-R-S-T-U. And above in English, we have Q-R-S-T-U.
Oh.
Okay, so when you go to Sesame Street and they say Abkadefki Jekulmanop Christuvixes, well, they're saying basically all they're saying is that the alphabet says Abka De, which is abracadabra, and it's a lexicon, and it's embedded in the alphabet and in the runes. You can see they're all the same. There's the H, there's the I, there's the K, the J, they're all the same. M, L. These ones are a little bit weird, these ones in the middle, but you can see Christ hiding there. Well, this is language. Language in English, for instance, Linda Goodman, the famous astrologist, speaks about lexicograms in a beautiful, beautiful book. And what are they? Well, words such as sword, remove the S, you have the word of God. Slaughter, remove the S, you have laughter. And you have all these. English is magical like this. And so what has been done is this science has been inverted. We've been told that the runes are demonic. You know, they're from an old ancient satanic, druidic tradition, the Nordic tradition. We've got Catholicism now and Christianity. Well, as you can see, they're both Christian religions. You know, Christ, they're both Christian. And so is Hebrew. It has Christ in it, Aramaic, because those letters always follow the same sequence. In the middle of alphabets, you will always have LMN, lumen hiding in the middle, LMN. And so that gives you lumen. That's one kind of light. Christ light is another kind of light. Abracadabra at the start of the alphabet is another. So what we're seeing here is actually, just to finish off, when in Sesame Street they say, Abkadevki Jekyll Monok Christu the says, basically is saying that Christ says, so from here to the end of the alphabet simply says Christ says.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You're blowing me away, because I have a minor in linguistics, and this is pretty awesome. That's phenomenal.
Well, when we were children, I used to watch Sesame Street all the time. I know all the characters off by heart. Now, we thought that they were teaching us education. Yeah, it was the Rockefellers embedding stupidity in our children. Because if you go to that video on YouTube where Big Bird teaches, says, I found a word, I don't know what it means, it's got 26 letters and it's Abkadevki, Jekyll, etc. Well, then this teacher comes along and says, no, Big Bird. You see, out of the mouth of babes. Along comes the teacher to correct him. That's not a word. That's the alphabet. It doesn't say anything. And yet he's singing, Christu vixes. Christu vi, the king, says at the end. Well, what does he say? Well, he says that spell. It's the God spell, the gospel. That's right here.
Whoa. Okay, you're blowing us away. This is amazing.
Sorry.
It's amazing. I just think it's absolutely phenomenal. One of the things that I wanted to do, as you were doing that, I found some other words in there too. I mean, when you do the LMN, we're talking about elements, and
yep.
Yeah, I mean, it's great. But hearing you say it, you've practiced this a lot, so it's easy for you to say that, to come up with it, obviously. I'm just going to screen share your website just so people can take a look at it. But there's a few reasons why I wanted to do this. This is the universaltruthschool.com. This is your website, and I love the way you've designed it, first with that nice horizontal horizon in the center, and of course these incredible statue megaliths. Is this from the Kailasa temple?
Yeah, this is one in India. This is Indian. Yes.
I mean, it really seems amazing to me what they can do, or what our ancient technology and our ancient wisdom did, and it seems like we lost this. Didn't they carve this entire temple out of one stone? How could they do that? How could they have been so more advanced than us today, yet this kind of teaching is being obscured? So it's like that wisdom and knowledge is not allowed. I mean, this is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, temple means timeless, and they are timeless. Tempo is time, and L is the fluid liquidity of the current of electricity, and hence circles and cycles. Hence, a temple means an eternal timepiece. And so they are. And you can't say, that a lot of these academics and historical people, will give 5,000 years to the pyramids and blah, blah, blah. They're timeless. That's not how time works. Time lines are inserted here and there willy-nilly as the demiurge and the archons wish. We're living in a timeline now. It's called the Julio-Gregorian, and that will fade away one day. It will wither like the grass, and then a new line will be inserted. As we can see, it's happening right now.
Well, let me just screen share another image of this temple. And the reason I want to is because on your website you describe that the philosophy, do you mind, is it right? Is it appropriate to call it philosophy of syncretism?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah. The philosophy of syncretism includes and covers topics like theology, astrotheology, natural science, astrology, reclaiming dominion, breaking the fictions of religion, science and law, and of course the holy science, which is the ancient science. I took this from your website, if you can tell. Workings of the solar system that posits the as above, so below. This is really ancient wisdom and ancient technology. It's amazing that this temple could be carved somehow out of a single stone. Yet when you're talking about as above, so below, when you're talking about some of these concepts that we're going to be getting into today, like for instance, let's just start with, like, we can accept this. People can look at that temple and accept, wow, that we don't understand it, but we accept the fact that there's something we don't understand about it, but it's okay. We're not questioning it. But when you talk about flat Earth or the concept of, the globe model, people, I've never seen such a visceral reaction from people, which you, I'm sure, are familiar with. Why do they have a problem even considering the concept but yet they can look at these temples? They don't have an answer for it. They can't explain how that was carved, but they accept it because they're seeing with their own eyes. They're not being, I guess, brainwashed, and, they're not parroting something that they're just told to repeat. They can see with their own eyes and feel with their own feelings, and yet sometimes they tend to suspend their own judgment. Why do they have such a visceral response to this? And Martin, feel free to jump in with any questions anytime, but now we're going to get into this flat Earth model a little bit. So why do they have such a reaction? People just cannot. They're like, oh, you're crazy if you say flat Earth. And we're like, really? Didn't you learn in school? Maybe the one truth was they used to think the Earth was flat. So what's going on there?
Yeah, that's a goodie. There's two things that when you mention them, you will get the same reaction. They want to stab you in the face with a sickle and watch you bleed to death almost if you talk about the flat Earth. And you suggest that the Jesus story is not factual, historical. It's truthful, magnificent, transcendental history. Oh, if you talk about Jesus, the Baptist version or the Jehovah's Witness one or the Mormon one, and you get one detail wrong, or deny his historicity, you will have the same reaction. Why? Because the Jesuits, who are behind both the Copernican revolution lie and the JC Julio-Claudian calendar Jesus Christ, because you see, JC is, they tell you it's the Anno Domini calendar, but they then tell you that it's the Julian calendar. So see how they confuse you? They've actually done a switcheroony on us. They've made a historical vicarious savior which never would be conceived by the gods. Such a stupidity that we cannot save ourselves. We're waiting for someone to come and wipe our bottoms and change our nappies. Jesus coming in the cloud. Should you say, and I'm Christian, as you can see, I love Christ. I'm also a follower of Krishna. The same thing, exactly the same thing. Exactly. And I've proven that, so no need for everyone to fall over crying that I've denied Jesus. To deny Jesus is great folly, and never would I ever do such a thing. I'm definitely a Jesus and a Christ individual because I know what they are. They are truth. They're not fact.
Well, sometimes when you get into the conversation, when you broach the subject with people, what I've learned is, excuse me, that they don't take it to the reasoning behind the argument. And I'm not here to convince anybody of anything. I think what we are planning on doing today is to present evidence and to present the critical thinking to analyze this. And viewers are going to come to their own conclusion, however best fits in their reality. But this is a war on truth. There's no question there's a war on truth on this planet. What are they hiding? I mean, some people say, what do you really care? It's not going to change whether the earth is flat or round. What do you really care? Because it's not going to change what I do tomorrow. And I said, well, It could. If you knew, why would they lie about it? And that's where the whole, egg cracks open. So can you take it from there?
Yeah, well, see, it's all about the power of control, and it's a demonic power. The elite families that invented both of those two blasphemous lies, disgusting and blood-shedding, they are the first ones to shed blood, and they are the first ones that will be denied salvation by Jesus himself, who in Matthew chapter 7 says, "Many will say to me in that day, Lord, did we not do powerful works in your name? Did we not expel demons in your name? Did we not perform many powerful things in your name?" And I will say to them in that day, "Get away from me, you workers of lawlessness. I never knew you." They are the first ones who will be rejected by their own Jesus, who they kill for so bloodlustily. So
you said syncretism is this uniting of the interrelatedness of things, and that it's the opposite of division and duality. Oh, I'm sorry,
yeah.
Disunity. So that's really kind of the program or the narrative that they're trying to push here. So what we have to assume then, that this is the opposite, that there is something very special about humans. There's something very special about Earth and what we're doing here. And that's the secret that they're trying to hide. But what is it? What is the secret?
Well, you see, the true cosmological model is obviously one of those things. That's the secret. They've been hiding it since since the Counter-Reformation and the papal bull of the Farnese family, Pope Paul III, who was, in fact, who Copernicus dedicated his book to, Farnese being the most powerful Persian family in the history of history, okay? They still sit in the Vatican and tell Fidel Castro's a Farnese, put it that way, okay? Now, these families, the Farneses, who made all these papal bulls of enslavement and who sent their ships over the Atlantic to conquistador, those families, Columbus, Cristobal Colon from the Colonna family in Rome, papal bloodline. They were fighting with the Orsini family. They became the Columbus family. They've got a lot of plantations where you live. One of them's called Washington District of Columbia, British Columbia, Columbia Pictures. All of those are owned by one papal bloodline. These are the families who tell you all the lies. The Jesuits were created by the Borgia family, conquistador family on steroids, with the Farnese family. Borgia, that's where my mother comes from in southern Italy, a town called Borgia. I know that name very well. Spanish satanic bloodline, love shedding blood, love making plantations for slaves to work in. And those are the Columbus family, the Orsini, the Farnese. And they created the Jesus lie. They tell you themselves. I can give you thousands and thousands of quotes ad infinitum by these very same families telling you that they pulled a beauty on humanity with the Jesus BS, historical, unfactual, proven to be unfactual, proven in courts lie. I can prove it. They've only got four. They've only got four historical. They've got Tacitus, Pliny the Elder, Suetonius, and Josephus Flavius, the Flavian Jew. Funny about that. A Roman Jew writing history with mentioning Jesus in one little sentence. So all the Christians are hanging their hats on these four spurious, very dubious, post-redacted insertions in the historical timeline that prove nothing. You can't take it to court and prove that Jesus is historical. There's nothing there. There's no historicity to it whatsoever. But it's not that it's a useless story. It's an astrological, Jesus has 12 disciples, 12 postals, 12 posts of the zodiac. It's all the same thing. Jesus is Jupiter Zeus, who is Thor, and our Thor has 12 knights around his round table. It's all the same science. It's Christian science. There's nothing historical about it, only that it has been around for all of history.
What is this, like ancestor worship here or something? I mean, are they?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Ancestor worship has been witch hunted by the Vatican and Empire because we are disrespecting our ancestors with pseudoscience, and not by having the runes. These are sacred runes. This is how we got to know the letters of creation. They are Kabbalistic powers unto themselves, the letters. Check out my presentation called Atomology and the Futhark. The Futhark is that word there.
Yeah.
Ark. See that ark?
Yes.
Well, there it is there in the runes. Futhark. Aries, Taurus, Gemini. It's the Ark of the Lamb. Okay? Hiram. Hiram Abith. Hiram above. Cerebram. Sarah Abram. It's all...
There you go. That's unbelievable.
And I'm trying to keep it simple. Really trying to keep it simple.
I know you are. I've listened to many of your presentations, and I know you are. But we're going to get into it a little bit deeper. Because as you're talking about these black nobility families... and they're called black nobility for a reason, right?
Yep.
Did you
yes, because of two things. Their deeds, black deeds, and because they are Phoenician, dark-skinned, Moorish descendancy, because the Phoenicians were the first ones to write alphabets and maritime law. You see, so when Rome destroyed Carthage, the mistress of the then seas in the Punic Wars, she now became Mary, the harlot who sits on many waters, the maritime ruler of the world. That's where maritime law comes from Mary. At Rome, Mars is embedded in that word. War, the patron saint of Rome.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. This, at some point, though, is that as you're describing the time frame of these families, when did and why did Copernicus kind of start to? What was going on at that time that they needed to start changing the model of the Earth and the universe, and just how the whole thing, the geocentrism, and how the whole model. I mean, it's a completely different model.
Yeah, well, there have always been globe models since the beginning of times, as there have been azimuthal, equidistant. I mean, I've got Al-Biruni 1,000 years ago. The azimuthal equidistant comes from this Persian astrologer, so they say. Okay, so when you look at the AE map and you marvel at its stereographic projection, and you still think you're living on a globe, well, you have to know that both models go back way past Copernicus and Al-Biruni. And so does the Mercator transverse projection map, and so does the ellipsoid map, and so does the concave, and the rectangular tabernacle tesseract model, and the Jewish Merkabah, and the Hindu mandala model. Why? Because it's all that. It's a torus, and so it wasn't that he invented the model. It's always been there because they're all useful models, to project out, and because you can never, no map is 100%, no map is, 100% accurate on a flat horizon which has mountains and valleys and stuff like that. Any projection's going to have certain weaknesses and distortions and exaggerations and compromises and what have you. So all that happened was the revolution was that he made the Earth move, because prior to that, the Ptolemaic geocentric model had a stationary Earth. So it was the Ptolemaic revolution. It's based in that stupidity of the model, not the globe. It wasn't his model. Okay, it's been around since freaking Aristotle, and and way back. So what happened was he now gave the movement, and then 160 years later, Newton gave the science behind it, gravity and how you stick to an upside down ball. Now you have a full revolution. Why, you ask the questions, do the elite families have to lie about the nature of the earth? Well, because Columbus set sail on the ocean's blue in 1942, so they say. He was obviously of these very, very wealthy families who knew very well about America and were doing commerce with America for thousands of years.
Right.
Okay. Commerce has never deceased. The history books have been redacted by the Jesuits, but what they did was, as they went over, there were ships going over with Puritans and folk trying to get away from the Inquisition, scientists, witches, astrologers who knew that there was no revolution. The earth is stationary. Obviously, it's a no-brainer. You can't see it moving. You can't feel it moving. It doesn't move. And science proves beyond any doubt that it does not move, right? So what they did was they added those two ingredients, because ships were going back and forth across the flat waters, and people were saying, she's a beautiful flat earth, just like the scriptures say, and like all the legends have ever said, stationary horizontal earth. So they only had 60 years. They invented the Reformation, totally a BS Protestant movement, nothing Protestant about it at all, because the true Protestants, the Huguenots, the Waldenses, were persecuted. They were true Christians. The Socinians, the Collegians, the Lollards, the Polish Brethren, etc., etc. Then comes Martin Luther, a Jesuit, Calvin, a Jesuit, Henry VIII, a Jesuit, all Jesuits in a Protestant Reformation, BS, and then that Counter-Reformation with the globe to boot, because in 1539, Farnese, the rulers of the world, created Convocation, the last of the Sestui papal bulls, which were enacted in 1666 after the fire of London, right? So that was a Farnese. Of course, the Borgia was the ones who were involved with the other two Sestui trusts, and the Gaetani family and the de Medicis, who conquered the we found them, lands. And so what we have now is Farnese did in 39, between 1539 and 1545, this is what one family did. Just like between 1939 and 1945, all of that turmoil was repeated 400 years prior to the day. 39, Convocation. 40, Jesuits are created. 41, Copernicus devotes his book to Farnese, who starts the Inquisition of the Sestui slave trade. Slave trade, they were slave traders and pig farmers. That's what they were, all of them. Then he did the Counter-Reformation, the Counter-Reformation, and the Council of Trent in 1549, the most bloodiest, evil council in the history of councils. There were 21 councils. The Council of Trent, Jesuits, murderers, pillagers and plunderers of sovereignty and freedom and wealth.
Of humanity. Martin, did you want to weigh in on, do you have any questions right at this point?
No, I'm
just going to hold off until we get, okay, let's move along. I'm going to just screen share this map that maybe you can explain. This might not be the best version of this map, but maybe you can help us understand what it is that we're looking at and how this is described in some ways in the Bible, of course, the four corners of earth, and it's quite amazing. This isn't maybe the one that you choose, but I have many of them queued up here. So I wanted to just go through a couple of maps so we could take a look at what, you can help us understand what we're looking at.
Okay, well, you're looking at certain projections and models that have come down through history. Some are square, some are circular, global models, flat earth, toroidal models, Yggdrasil Nordic type, Jack and the Beanstalk model with the Midgard in the middle. You got the Hebrew model, which is 10 Sephiroth, and they're concentric rings with a flat earth in the middle. And then you've got Sheol below it. Basically, what you're doing is you don't have any complete models at all whatsoever. You never will. What you will have is dimensions of the model. Some models will show you the spherical parts of the cosmos. Others will show you the Mandela disk flat earth parts. Some will show you the Jewish Merkabah, Star of David, pyramidal shape of the universe. Some will show you the hypercube tesseract tabernacle type square. Hence you see this model is very good here. You have there on the screen because it has the four corners of the earth, and you have the circle of the earth, as it says in Isaiah. God dwelleth upon the circle of the earth, not the sphere, the disk. And in Revelation 21, it calls the earth a platus or a platos, which means a flat plane. In the Quran, God says that he has stretched the earth out like a carpet. You don't have curves on carpets. They're all level.
Right. And, you know, I think one of the interesting parts about this is that it's showing that, okay, the North Pole is in the center, which we can see. But, okay, this is where it starts to really change for people, is that, well, you know, the naysayers, and I say naysayers because let me tell you, it took me a year. It took me a good year to get to suspend my bias of what I was taught in school, what was force-fed to me in school about this is just what it is, and you have to learn it, and you can't think for yourself. You must suspend what you observe naturally. I'm standing still. How could this planet be moving this fast, spinning this fast, and then, of course, orbiting even faster, 70,000 miles an hour? Yet I don't feel a thing. So how did we get into this mess? I see the sun moving. I don't seem to be moving. Why do we, these are observations people can make to challenge this. And it's amazing how they understood the human psyche so much that obviously, they've controlled the education system. And through the control of the education system, they were able to control what information we had access to. And when you generally accept this has been the truth all of your life, and then one day someone says, well, you know what, this isn't real. That's why they have that visceral reaction. And I did too. I mean, I'm from the same, plane as everybody else. So it did take me a long time. I sat on the fence for a little while, but once I started looking at the evidence in a way that I could understand it. So the thing about all of this evidence is that, it's, for some people it has to be presented a certain way. For other people it has to be presented a different way. We're different learners. So,
yes.
Right. That's why I'm really happy, and I'm very grateful that you took this opportunity to join us on GoldFish Report, because I'm trying to look at it in the more artistic, creative way, but also I'm trying to balance it because I really want to look at the evidence, and I want to say, use critical thinking. But I also want, I also know that for me, I'm more of a spatial learner, a visual learner. So I needed to see the maps. I needed to see it in my face to see what the evidence was that I was overlooking. And of course, the first thing is that one of the problems that I had, what really got me started on the research was, okay, we can't be spinning because the constellations never move. I mean, they change according to season, but, and of course, according to the month, but they're always there every year. It's predictable. Now, it can't be predictable if we're steaming through the universe, at 70,000 miles an hour, spinning 1,000 miles an hour. I mean, come on. How did we believe that? What happened? Why? So people have the problem with, so the North Star. So maybe you can explain this. You can explain what happens. How do we know that the sky is turning and we're not. How do we know that?
Okay. Well, we know it by scientific experiments, so it has been established as a fact and a truth, a universal truth. Only in the universities of this world, the Western world now, who run under the UN program, and UNIDROIT, Vatican, are allowed to teach the false pseudoscience model, you see, of the moving revolution. And there is none. And so they will hide the fact that James Bradley in 1729, Astronomer Royal in England, established that the Earth is stationary. 150 years later, George Airy, Astronomer Royal for 45 years, same post, greatest astronomer post in the universe, established with his Airy's failure telescope experiment that the Earth is stationary. Morley, Michelson, Gale, two separate tests that were conducted to counter Einstein's theory of special relativity in 1905 and general relativity in 1915. Morley had to check up and do another testing with Gale, and in the meantime there was another guy, Sagnac, a Frenchman, who was establishing and has established with proof, scientific repeatable proof, that the Earth does not move. Then Marconi, the inventor of the radio, was working with a colleague for 10 years whose name is Pierluigi Igina. You can go to YouTube and see him speak for himself. Great scientist, hero, genius of Italy, who tells you the Earth is stationary. La Terra è ferma, non si muove. That's what Pierluigi Igina says. And he died in 2004, and he left Marconi's blessing. He said, Marconi and I did 10 years of testing with an antenna out of the ground and half an antenna going into the ground, because there are only two energies, solar and earth. And Marconi and he discovered that the solar energy is rotating magnetically in the ether clockwise, reaches the earth, turns its spin, goes anti-clockwise in a negative, and returns to the sun, its source. And in between that sandwich is all manner of creation and vibrations. And he said, we discovered by measuring and putting a strobe light on the two currents of energy that the Earth does not move. It cannot move. Hence he said, why is it that Cecchi, a Calabrian southern Italian scientist, said, why is it that he made a machine, a seismic machine, that can detect the movement of 1/10 of a millimeter of the Earth's movement? If you can make a machine as a clumsy human being that can detect 1/10 of a millimeter of movement of the Earth, then he said he asked the interviewer, he said, you tell me, does the Earth move if Cecchi can make a machine that detects the alarms go off if there's any movement of the Earth 1/10 of a millimeter? And they tell you that we're orbiting around the Earth at Mach 89.
Yeah, right. And my hair doesn't move. It's amazing.
Mach 89. Can you imagine the G forces? During the day, you'd be compressed, and at night, you'd be sucked off the back of the Earth. Period.
It's quite amazing. But I think what it was the misconception, like what's keeping us, the whole gravity model. The problem with it was, I think that was when I started to look into this, and maybe you can explain it a little bit more, was that this centrifugal force, that's the theory that holds that's the theory that holds the pseudoscience together. That's the force that holds the pseudoscience together, right? The centrifugal force, because in experiments that I saw, thanks to YouTube, I saw that the only reason that a ball, if you spin a ball on a string, or I think that was the model, if you let go of it, it's going to go in one direction, but if you hold on to it, the pressures are equalized. It's maybe I'm not explaining it right, but I think you know what I'm getting at. Can you go into that direction and explain the problem with gravity and this whole centrifugal force issue?
Yeah, it's all push and pull. It's centrifugal divergent magnetic energy of the vortex, which is half of the conjugate eternal coexistent principles of the universe. One is force and motion, and the other is inertia and acceleration. So you've got centrifugal divergent magnetism, and then at the other hand, you've got centripetal convergent dielectrical lines of flux lines of force or acceleration. Gravity is only, it's like the fourth element of the three fields, the universal modality fields, which are dielectricity, magnetism, and electricity. So what's gravity? Where does that come? Well, it's like a ghost. It's like, yeah, I mean, it's a good word. Grave means heavy, leve means light. So gravitate, levitate. It shows how buoyancy and what's the other law? Density. It just describes how they the mechanics of it. It's not an explanation. Gravity explains nothing because gravity, in a sense, it doesn't exist. It's dielectric voidance or dielectric acceleration, which exists, but it doesn't apply to the Earth at all. The reason why we fall down to the Earth, it's not about dielectricity, gravity, and anything other than we are in the medium of air. If we're in the medium of water, well, then the gravity would be relative to that. You know, we'd bounce. Our steps would be slower because it's condition dependent, and it's not. And so, but if our body's in air, the condition is different, so we can move around better in the air, right? And so we see that. So the floating and the buoyancy and the density operates different, and we can see that's not gravity.
So it is an issue of buoyancy and density, and
yeah,
go ahead.
Yeah, well, the flux lines are going both ways. So there's pushing from on high, from the sun's rotating magnetic field. It always has a pushing atmospheric pressure to it, you see. And so what we call gravity it's a good word. I like it. I don't think we need to replace it, but it's like giving reifying a shadow. We know that there's nothing in a shadow. The body that is casting the shadow is real, but my shadow, you cannot reify it. It's not a thing. It has no principles and attributes. Well, it has attributes, but it's not a principle. There you go. It has attributes. It's colder in the shade. Yeah, that's an attribute. So you can describe it, but it's not, you can't reify it. You're never going to bring it to life. Only the item or what cast the shadow is real. So gravity is like this thing that you can't reify. That's why scientists say, 6 months ago they announced to the world, we found a gravity wave 16 gazillion miles away. We detected it over there. We can't do it here because you can't, because it doesn't exist. It's like, it's the false god of pseudoscience, because if they were really wanting to teach us the truth about theology and physics and how the universe is based on magnetism, really the truth, well, they would tell you that we can move on from that word gravity or reclaim it and teach what it really is. It's buoyancy and density, but in the real world of magnetism, it is dielectric voidance.
Well, this is loaded. There's so many questions I have. Okay, so we have the technology to detect this signal that's a gazillion light years away. But why can't the Hubble telescope turn around and take a picture of the Earth for us?
Well, this is the thing. You know, there's many ways to see that there's something wrong with the current model. Many ways. It's scary when you look into it. And if you're honest, you will start doing the right research, you'll humble your heart. It's very hard for me to humble my heart when in 2014 people were sending me flat earth videos, and here I am poncing around the globe trotting. I went to England, I went to Ecuador doing syncretism with the globe model. Yes, and we're flying around the globe. Very hard for me to sort of say, right, stop. The model that I used to laugh at when I was a Jehovah's Witness, knocking on people's doors for 30 years, saying, oh, how silly the ancients were 500 years ago. They thought we lived on a flat earth, and now we've got photos of the globe, and the Bible says that God lives on top of, above the circle of the earth. And this is all proof. As Jehovah's Witness, I was doing this. I don't know how many times I laughed at the flat earth all my life. And then comes 2005. And I just came out with it, right? It's not something, you know, I lost, well, I didn't lose. I didn't have followers or listeners because I don't want them or ask for them, but I lost in the sense that they followed my work. I lost thousands, you know, big bunch, and many of them attack me viciously and what have you, but isn't that the job of a researcher? Isn't that what we are required to do in due diligence, to search under every stone for the truth? Even the one where the priest says, well, don't look under that stone because the devil's hiding that. You just come to our books because our publications have the truth in them, don't they? Yes. And you can put money in the contribution box while you're at it, can't you? This is the false. These are the satanic priestcraft who have infiltrated the true churches of light and truth and insinuated themselves and perpetrated the left-hand path of, you know, flesh eating and ejaculation. Once upon a time, only tantric holy sex was practiced, and that's how people were ascending, by not ejaculating. Why would you discharge your own cerebrospinal brain fluids and get all wrinkly like a dried prayer? So discharge all your brain power, all the potassium and calcium in your sperm, all the goodies. Why would you do that? Insanity. And they also introduced eating of dead carcasses, which is vampirism, which is meat eating. Imagine that, call that meat eating when they go to restaurants. So we'll have a little bit of pork tonight. Do you mean dead pig's bum? That's the true definition of what you are ingesting. A dead pig's ass. So you are what you eat, yeah?
Yeah,
good.
For sure.
Those are the two most demonic practices, other than the teachings of the Jesus buffoon vicarious salvation, hocus pocus, and the upside down spinning revolving home that we live on. Apparently can't prove it. All the science tells you that it's stationary. Even your own senses do. And I know one thing, I don't care whether globies laugh at me and say that they come from apes and that they're living upside down on a ball. I know that I'm vertical on a horizontal plane, always have been, always will be. That's who I am, because I know who I am.
Well, I think part of the issue is, I mean, honestly, this is, if it was a ball, and look, I haven't seen it firsthand. I'm really trying to be neutral. But after having looked at all this evidence, you can't be completely neutral because you see truth in it. And I am not trying to convince people. We're just trying to show you. We're trying to do the critical thinking and show you where we ourselves found ourselves in the same position where we were following the masses, going with the status quo, and something just changed that. And we started to think for ourselves. That's why. See, as long as they could get us to just parrot everything they were programming into us, and all we would do is just recall, just rely on rote memory, then we didn't need to think for ourselves. It kind of played in with that whole, savior concept where I have to rely on somebody else to give me the truth. I can't trust myself. I can't know my own self to know that that I'm perceiving myself, my perception is accurate. I have complete control of my faculties, and my faculties are telling me I'm stationary. And also, so the whole issue was like the water issue. Like, how does, you know, I mean, you're in Queensland right now. I'm in New York, and this means you would be upside down. You don't look upside down.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's credible in the universe that we could be upside down. I'm not saying it's not credible, but it's not scientific. Anything's possible.
Yes.
Look, the globe is a great model in the model world, theoretically, not in practice, but theoretically, it's a great model, and we could easily live in a world where we are upside down, but we're not. It's just not scientific. It could be in another system, but in this system, we know, because we've done the scientific tests, we are not upside down. We never are, and we've never moved on this earth. The only movement we get is a couple of seismic reactions when the earth has a bit of a nudge, and that's not very nice. They're called earthquakes.
Well, let's look at this. You talked about buoyancy before. Let me, and Martin, feel free to jump in, you know, when you have questions or comments. Even a comment, Martin, that's perfectly fine too. But, you know, the whole idea of density, it's all about, I guess the whole model, if you really want to just look at it, the model about density and buoyancy. So the question is, okay, it's the gravity that's keeping all this massive, and just I don't know how you can calculate the weight. We know how much water weighs. We've seen, you know, thanks to the Weather Channel, you know, people being washed away in flash floods that are, you know, 1-2 feet high. Water is powerful. How, if we're on a globe, does this water stay on this planet? So that's the first question. But the second part is, it is about density, isn't it? I mean, you said we're in air. So since our bodies weigh more than air, we don't float. But you take a helium balloon and it floats. But where is that same pressure, the helium air in the balloon? Where is that same massive pressure holding this massive amount of water on the planet, but not on the balloon?
And how can that helium escape? Because it's the lightest, it should be sucked in the first. Right?
Exactly. So these are the fundamental problems. But let me go to what some of the other side kind of the arguments they say. Well, Earth is round because all the other planets are round. That's the first one I get. What do you have to say about that?
Yeah, it's true. They are round. Yeah, but a dollar coin is also round. So is a concave bowl round. We don't know whether they are concave, convex discs. The Egyptians always called it the solar disc. The Romans call it Sol Invictus, the disc, winged disc, etc. Yeah, they are round because that's all we can see. We've got eyes here that are limited, and all we can see is the torus, the compressed torus, which is round. We can't see the tesseract in counter space, but there's a tesseract surrounding the sun, a tesseract surrounding your body, a hypercube, yeah? And there's also a mandala, and there's also a merkaba. You are a merkaba. In fact, in Turkish, they say merhaba, which means, you know, it's a greeting. It's a salutation because they're saluting your body, which is a merhaba, which is a Jewish word, which means the vehicle of your body, which is a torus field. That's why you have a torso, you know, a thorax. These are all Thor words, you know, because you're a torus field and you are a Jupiterian, you know, field of magnetism. And so when we look at the planets, so-called, the ancients always called them sonoluminescent beings. In fact, Ptolemy of the geocentric model, which was good enough for thousands of years, said the planets, the wandering stars, are entirely luminous. But now NASA says, no, Mars is no longer entirely luminous, just like we used to believe it's a rock, and we're going to go there, aren't we? And we went to the moon. We proved it with all those photos that we showed you. That should be enough evidence. And the fact that we had a game of golf up there also suggests that, you know, we're rather, you know, sportive and clever, aren't we, when we go to the moon?
Yeah, all packaged in that tiny little module, right?
And also a space buggy and golf clubs and all sorts of things. And, of course, the cameraman was already there waiting for the landing and managed to get some snippets on that nice Kodak's old analog film for us to be digitalized and sent all 220,000 kilometers. Great GPS system, satellite GPS system to do that for us. Thank you very much, Stanley Kubrick and crew. And so they've got all the proof, haven't they? You know, we're so convinced. The evidence is outstanding. People were laughing at the moon landing back then, all the intelligent ones. They said, ain't no human going to go with a body to the moon, please.
Well, let's look at this. What about this Van Allen belt? Is this what you would call the firmament, or is this something, we know there's a radiation, or we're told. I mean, look, we rely on what we're being told. What is I mean, Admiral Byrd, you know, and I do have some footage of this that I want to play a clip of in a minute. But Admiral Byrd's expeditions showed that when he tried to circumnavigate Antarctica, he kept and he, you know, in these documentaries, he was really very, very meticulous with keeping track of his charting his course, and he was off every day by 18 degrees, every day by 18 degrees, every day by 18 degrees, until what he realized was he traveled 60,000 miles for him to make that complete circumnavigation. What does that tell us? I mean, that's not, Antarctica's not that big from what we're told, but that, but I think people should just try to look at that historical footage, and then they find, well, and they say, well, where's the edge? How come we don't fall off the Earth? So while you want to comment on that, I'm going to find this clip, and let me just see.
You know, well, it's like saying, you know, it's what is so ludicrous is really globies who are upside down laughing at verticals who are horizontal and balanced, and they're going to fall off the edge of the Earth. How do you do that? I've never fallen out of my bed. It's horizontal, I know that.
Right.
But if I put it on an incline, I probably would fall off. If my bed was a ball, I'd probably fall off, but it's flat. So you don't fall off flat things unless you're an idiot. And I don't think idiots go out exploring because they're idiots. Intelligent people go out exploring so they don't fall off.
Well, I'd like to get your feedback on this. I'm going to play a short clip here, and good thing it is a nice little disclaimer here for fair use copyright. Google and YouTube, please take note of this, just in case I needed to have to point that out. So I'm going to, I hope the sound is going to be okay. We're just going to play just a little bit of this, just so this, I can turn this up.
There is. Now, the North Pole is the center of an ocean 10,000 feet deep. The South Pole, center of a plateau 10,000 feet high. The North Polar Sea is surrounded by continents, slightly frozen. The Antarctic continent is surrounded by a belt of ice, frozen seas of at least 1,200 miles thick. Now, the South is a plateau. It gets, in some places, 14,000 feet up. I've been over areas about 15,000. And it's a little bit chilly up there.
Just wanted to stop here just for a minute, because look at this huge ice wall. Do you want to comment up to this point right here? Is there something you want to point out, or can I just get your reaction to this?
Well, I mean, look at that. You know, if you if you're an explorer, if you're an explorer, you'll pretty much settle with, okay, I found that, and then you'll go around and, you know, you make some notes, of course, and then you probably come back with a greater expedition and go beyond, like Admiral Byrd's friend, Sir Captain George Hubert Wilkins, a Tasmanian who went 5,000 miles, according to him, beyond Antarctica and found their lands which are not known to us. That's Sir Captain George Hubert Wilkins.
Well, let's take a look at that. I'm going to screen share this one too, because I do have a clip of that, and maybe you can, you know, explain what's going on here. This is from Admiral Byrd's secret expedition, they called it, where they finally discovered these mountains that they weren't expecting to find there, and among other things. Were you able to hear? Was the sound okay on that, or? Well,
Yeah, a little bit louder would be better.
okay, I'll give that a try. So I'm going to
20.
play this, and then get your reaction to this.
Leans forward in amazement. His eyes of
Needs to go up.
Yeah.
The universal white is turned to chocolate brown, dotted with blue. A cameraman goes into action.
Well, it's an old video, so the sound is not that good. But what we're looking at here is there's, as you can see, the text here: huge areas with no snow, no ice, and cold near this passage. And then they're going to show. Maybe it's more important to just point out what we're seeing in the video in just a moment. So let me continue and see where this is going to show.
100 square miles of land without snow. Land that might be in New Mexico or Arizona. Pictures alone will prove Bunker has discovered a warm oasis in the shadow of the pole. It is for such supreme moments as this that men brave the hardships of expedition.
Look at that. This is the South Pole. This is Antarctica. This is beyond that wall when they flew into the expedition, and they found areas that were completely covered with snow and had these lakes, these clear water lakes. So where can we find reference to this, aside from Admiral Byrd's expedition here? Where else do we find reference to this historically? Isn't there reference in the Bible?
Oh yeah, Great Southern Lands, etc. I would go on in a browser and just look for, punch in the words world beyond the poles. Great book there, and narrations videos on YouTube by Gabrielle Henriette, Robotham, and certain readings you can read about the worlds beyond the poles, etc.
Right.
There's plenty around.
So this is the book that Santos just mentioned, and I'm going to screen share this too. For anybody who wants to do some research on this subject, which has a lot of very interesting information in it. I mean, it's quite compelling. It does talk about Admiral Byrd's expedition, things that they found. But I think so we're kind of looking at all the arguments, I mean, what has been your experience with people that have had the most difficult time, I guess whether it was reason, logic, or just disbelief because it was just part of their belief system? What are some of the other arguments that you, or I would say, obstruction that you, or resistance that you come up against when it comes to this model? Like scientifically, what are their, what is their art? I mean, NASA, as you know, means never a straight answer. How do we have these images of the pictures that NASA gave us? They don't seem, where did they get those images? And they seem to keep changing anyway. And so maybe you want to comment on that. We're relying on NASA, but this is not that reliable, actually.
When you get a chance, I got a question.
Oh, go ahead. Well, let him comment on this first, and then,
fine.
okay, I just saw your, thanks. Santos, yeah.
So what was that again?
Well, I think I was saying, what were the, everyone trusts NASA, which is why they are having a difficult time even looking at some of this historical evidence of not the same story. I mean, it's clearly not the same story. There's they're going to have this cognitive dissonance because they're trusting NASA. Yeah.
All the institutions are controlled by the Jesuits. We must understand this. This is a very powerful New World Order organization. It's the military arm. It's DC. It's the Vatican. It's London. It's the Zionists. It's all these families who control the wealth of the world for the purpose of controlling people through demonic forces. They will tell you at any given time what they want to, that whatever you believe is heresy. So right now, it's heresy to believe in a stationary flat Earth because it's convenient for them. Once upon a time, it was a heresy for you to believe it was a globe or anything other than what is established by empire. So one day, because people are opening their eyes, it will be heresy and stupidity on top of heresy to believe in a globe. And that's coming very soon because the final coffins have been served already to the globe. It's dead. It's Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty's the globe. Had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men can never put the globe together again. Only the king can. Only the king can, not the king's horses, not the king's men and all the buffoons who do the false telling, the false prophets of the king. The king, if he wishes, he'll tell forth the lie and people will believe the lie because the Bible says that. I am Jehovah, the God of the truth and the lie. The lie I put out to deceive the stupid and the truth I put out to illuminate the wise.
Martin, did you have a question for Santos?
That's real simple. Can you go back to that picture you showed with that admiral, the flat Earth with the ice around the outside edge?
Yeah, let me get back to that.
I'm going to show you something really simple. I just noticed this. It makes a lot of sense to me. I don't know, maybe it doesn't make any sense to anybody else, but...
Okay, you can just let me know where in the video you wanted to go. Was this one of them or...
Now go back a little bit where you showed the flat surface with the circle. Yeah, that one there.
Okay.
All right. So if we're to prove the point of flat Earth, right? If you were to take a plane from South Africa and fly to the edge right here, right? At the very bottom there, and then follow that all the way around, wouldn't you be able to just come to Alaska straight along? If you followed the curve all the way around and fly straight back to Alaska on the other side? Wouldn't that be a simple way of proving that this is flat?
So what you're saying is the flight path. Say that again. So I'm going to draw this.
Okay, so go here. Go to South Africa. Go down here to the south end of South Africa.
Right.
All right. You start right there.
Yeah.
Now fly to the ice, straight down to the south of the ice. Right.
Right.
South.
Right.
Now, if you follow that all the way around, just follow the ice pattern all the way around.
Right.
All right.
You want me to draw that?
Yeah, just follow that around.
Follow the ice. I mean, we can see it.
Like that. If you followed it around, then if you flew back inland, what would you come? Right, you'd fly back into a totally different location. That'd prove it right there that was flat because you followed the ice pattern all the way around, thinking it was south. You thinking it was the Antarctic, right? Because you flew to the Antarctic from the end of Africa there. And you followed that ice pattern all the way around, then flew back inland in another location, it would prove that it's flat.
Okay, so and here's another example. So if you were going to go from like Santiago, Chile, right, and to Sydney, am I going the right direction? It would have to on the round map, on the round globe, you'd literally be going. So what is this, like 15,000 miles, right?
Well, you'd be going around the other side of this. If it was a round map, you go past that and around the other side.
But wouldn't you think if this was a globe that would be the quickest way, around because it's the shortest distance? But if you look up flights,
they go the other direction, don't they? They go towards, exactly. They all go towards the center.
Yeah, they're going to go this way. So Santos, what's going on with these flight? What are the flight schedules? I'm sure you've looked at this. What are they really telling us here?
Oh, well, look, I mean, there are, when Columbus discovered the Americas, he discovered the currents. I forget right now the names of those, but anyway, south of the equator, there are currents going westward. Yep, the trade winds. Yep, okay, so he found that below the equator, he could easily get to America within weeks, and then north of the equator, come back and pick up the trade winds. Okay, so what's going on is the same thing is happening magnetically in the skies. There are jet streams, okay, and they know where those jet streams are. They pick up a few extra 100 kilometers of speed for tailwinds. They also, I mean, they've got Mark II, Mark III flying machines. I mean, if you want to go to a destination and arrive there in 1 hour's time,
Right.
you can get there faster or slower. You just change the the amount of gas you put on your pedal, right? So the same thing happens. How many times are flights delayed deliberately? Hours. How many are they? Sometimes they get there early, etc. So there's many ways of achieving these, phenomenal flights on all models. I don't get concerned with them at all. But one thing is telling. In 2013, I did some touring, you see, and I flew from Melbourne to Ecuador. Now, if you draw a line on this map that you have from Melbourne to Los Angeles to Panama, then to Ecuador, you'll find something very interesting. Would you like to do that?
Yeah, I'm trying to do it. Wait, I have to get a different color. Spotlight, draw. Here we go. Okay, let's start from Melbourne, which is Melbourne, more south here. It's probably about where I was. From there to...
No, just go from Sydney, actually.
Sydney.
Yeah, because I'm going to go from there in the next one. I've got 2 flights for you to put in there.
Okay, is this a good place to start? Because
yes,
I'm trying to look at it upside down. Down to Los Angeles, which is going to be...
Los Angeles.
Right here, yeah. I'm going off my table. And then you wanted to go to Panama.
Panama.
Yeah.
I had to do all of this, and then right there. That's it. That's where Ecuador is, right there.
Yeah.
Leave it. Can you see that's a straight line?
Right.
Now, I remember saying to Johnny Guzman in Ecuador, who arranged the tour, I said, please get me a transatlantic flight straight to Chile and then up to Ecuador. It's faster. I don't want to go to Los Angeles, Panama, and freaking Ecuador, man. I don't like these stopovers. And he couldn't do it. Okay, now, a month later, I fly to Rome from Melbourne. So can you put a line there from Melbourne to Rome? I did a stopover in China. And I thought to myself, another stopover? Like that stupid Los Angeles stopover I had to do? Watch this. Right, you got it? There it is.
Yeah, I've got it right there.
Now, I remember saying to Francesca Colella, who arranged the Italian Syncretism tour, she said, oh, no, it's a direct, but you stop over in China. I said, no. China on the globe, sister, is all the way freaking, you might as well be in Alaska. Why do I have to go to Alaska to stop over to go to Rome? And she argued with me. Back then, that was a year before I even saw any product on the flat Earth. And these 2 tours that I did, always, here's another thing. In 2002, I was flying from Melbourne, right, to, from Perth to Melbourne. That's one side of Australia, the western half, to the east. I was flying east into the sun.
Perth to where? Where were you going?
Melbourne, right where you've got that green line going.
So it's kind of, here's a pink line. So I'm
That's
drawing.
it.
So I'm
but,
trying to meet another color.
Well, no, leave it red, but the red line's too low. Perth is sort of more in the middle. Go up more. No, not Melbourne. That's Melbourne. The other side.
Perth, you mean over here?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Lift it up. Well, yeah.
I can't really. All right, let me erase that and I'll do it over. I'll do it over. Let me erase it. Okay, I'll do it again. I'll use yellow this time so it's a little bit more obvious. And do my arrow draw. My arrow. So we're going to go right about here. Perth? I thought it was a little further south, but you're saying it's like more in the middle. So
yeah, no, it's there. Yeah,
okay,
right there.
There we go. Okay, good.
Okay, now here's me in the late afternoon, 3:30, 4 o'clock, right? So you know what's happening, don't you? It's evening. Now, I'm in a jumbo jet, 30,000 feet, thereabouts, I don't know, high, really high, looking down on the flat, very flat Earth, and in front of me for 180 degrees is pitch black, dark night, right? Now, so you do this with your hands. I looked that way out the window, and behind my hands was black, and in front of my hands for 180 degrees was Behind me was the sun setting, pure daylight. I saw, and many others in the plane who were taking photographs and gasping. Everybody was going, oh my God, because not only did they see the delineator, which you can see clearly on the flat earth how it works, there's a delineator, because the sun's rays have reach. They don't go forever and ever like they say. They don't travel because light does not travel.
Okay.
Hence, hang on. Then, this proves we live on a flat earth, because for 180 degrees behind us, not only was it daylight and darkness pitch black in front of us, but there was a rainbow on the horizon arcing a whole 180 degrees flat. Now, we know that an arc, a rainbow is an arc, hence it has a curve, but it doesn't bend on its lateral axis. There's no bending. So you can't have a rainbow arching and bending to suit a globe. It was flat, and it was a very thick belt. It was like about 3 or 4 degrees sitting on the horizon for 180 degrees behind us. A rainbow, pure, the most brilliant rainbow I've ever seen. Everybody saw it. I don't remember why I didn't photograph it. I've never been one for photographs. I've never liked to have photographs taken of myself, etc. Anyway, I didn't. So you have to take my word for it. That happened.
Oh, I believe it happened. And I mean, we're not talking about a sine wave here, right? Over an axis. That's what you're saying. You're saying
that's right. It can arch, but it cannot bend on a globe. It can't have 3-dimensional arching. No rainbow can. They are 2-dimensional.
Okay, Martin, you had a comment before we started. You were talking about the light rays.
Oh, yeah.
You want to bring that up? Yeah.
Well,
the rays of the sun.
Yeah, because I was looking at a bunch of videos today, and I noticed they talked about the light rays shining through the clouds, and if they come in at an angle, and they did trigonometry, figuring the angles that if the sun was as far away as they say it was, there wouldn't be any angles coming off the sun, because it would be a straight line by the time it got here. So so they did a calculation, said it's only 3,100 feet from the Earth because of the way the light rays shine when it comes through the clouds. And it was interesting, because that makes sense that if it's traveling in a circle, not traveling around, it's traveling in a circle, then it's only traveling, it only has the ability to travel 3,100 feet, right? From the sun to the Earth.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can never triangulate the sun. There's nothing physical, really physical as we know it, above our heads. This is all transcendental and transdimensional stuff. The sun, you cannot triangulate the sun. It doesn't work like it's like if you've got a magnifying glass, which is the source of the reflection of the sun's light, and you project it onto a dry leaf, you can burn it from a distance. Okay, so as the rainbow is a projection, it's not really there. You can't grab it and put it in your pocket if you go and look for it, and your friend can't see it, only you can. So it's a local objective projection, and that's what the sun is. You have to remember, no one has ever given us a model of the cosmos in its complete form. All they've done is replicated the cosmos. Hence, the Egyptians said it was a Merkabah, so they venerated the pyramid. The Jews, they said it was a tabernacle, so they venerated the tesseract and the cube. The Islamists, they've got the Kaaba, the cube. The Jews have got the Kaaba on their head, the phylactery. The Kaaba is the square part. The Christians have a cross because it's in the shape of a man, and man is the measure of the universe, as above, so below. Hence, the universe is a cross. It's a torus field. It's a tesseract. And this is how we do this. I mean, you've got to just be able to, use your sacred geometrical wisdom, which we all have, and discern from the scriptures. So let's grab a bit of this then, a bit of whiteboard that I don't particularly need anymore. And you can see there. So if we have the torus field that everything is, that all atoms are, all solar systems, all bodies, period, that have torsos and toruses, we'll have a central point which is the source of all things, counterspatial God light, unlimited, unconditioned, unqualified, and just eternal. And then if you have centrifugal divergent lines coming out of this and then creating that beautiful shape that we know, which is the apple and the apple core, we see that this is a torus and this is an hourglass hyperbole. So you have tor and bol. This becomes Baal, and this becomes rotating ROT, red, BLO, blue, redshift, blue shift, produced by divergent, centrifugal, and then convergent centripetal lines, which are seeking rest. So here you have Abra light, which is opening. Abra means to light, and then they have the resting light of Christ, which always seeks to rest. So we know we have a torus, but it's probably a split torus, and every torus has a dielectric inertial plane. So here is the mandala that people keep describing in all their temples. Go to India, go to Angkor Wat, go to Thailand, and you will see mandalas everywhere. And then you go to Jerusalem and you'll see the Star of David, the Merkaba, and Mount Meru in the center, which is the vehicle which drives the torus field. And then there's a counterspatial tabernacle, which is also part of the firmament, which is a counterspatial tesseract, which is the tabernacle of Moses, right? And then you have the cross, which has its Christian counterpart, will have the cathedral will more or less represent the legs will be here of the cathedral, and then you'll have the top, and then you'll have a cross like this, and all cathedrals have this shape. And this is not even half of the models within models and torus fields embedded in torus fields and tesseracts, spheres and encompassing cubes, which are encompassed themselves by spheres in counter space. There's many more of these.
Okay, this geometry, I'm sorry, sorry to interrupt. Are you talking here about the, like what the Knights Templar, what the Masons, the Masonics did? They knew how to build these cathedrals with this sacred geometry. Okay, please take that and go where, because I don't know where you're going to go exactly, but I have a feeling you know where to go with that. How is this related energetically? Yeah.
Okay, well, the people who have the sacred science of cosmology, like the Jews, they call this, they have their Sephirotic 10 spheres concentric sphere model, and it's also harmonizes with the Ptolemaic model, which was around before Copernicus, same as the Bible model. So the Jews, the Bible, the Torah, astrology, all correspond with this. They all have a tabernacle. Yeah, they all have a circle. Yeah, you saw in that model that you saw a circular earth inside of a square earth, which is the tabernacle, the four corners of the earth, the four angels holding back the four winds, and then you see the circle that God is dwelling within, because the Bible is not there going to tell you every detail about the cosmos and give you a factual, catalogued, tabulated document. They're probably there, but we don't have them. The Vatican's probably hoarding those, but that's not what sacred books do. The sacred books remind you of what you already used to know, because you are the architect of this structure, because we are gods, and hence we are co-creators with the Creator. We know this form. This is our form. We live it. The cross is a symbol of it. The yin-yang is a symbol of it.
We have it. What then are we doing on this plane with these people who are, well, really, they have complete contempt for us. They have a depopulation agenda going. I mean, what a train wreck this is, and this is where we're going. We're on a train wreck, and I think that we have world leaders now trying to come together and create some peace, create a more even currency, because unfortunately we have to deal with currency on this planet. We can't just be born on this planet and for the sake of our birthright be entitled to food and shelter that is already provided on the planet. So the thing is that what are we doing here with these people? What on earth plane are we doing here with them? What was our purpose here to begin with? What does this model really tell us about us, about ourselves?
Well, that we are transdimensional. You see, in here, this is our body. Your body's like this. You are this cross. When you unpack a cube, you get a cross. And that's your body, and that's your temple. So the Catholic Christian system epitomizes the universe with a cross, hence the cathedral shape. And you always walk in at the east here. This is the east of the temple. The Christians will have a synagogue, which will be rather cubic. The Egyptians have their phi ratio rectangle inside the Great Pyramid. All of these are necessary shapes that make up the whole. And so you will only be privy to one of these geometric forms. It depends on your baptism. If you are baptized by fire, which is mystical, M-Y-S-T, that's different to baptism by water, which is M-I-S-T. That's why the mystic, is the fiery, visionary, clairvoyant, and he will see the Merkaba, because that's fire. And so he will model that as the universe. He'll say that's the universe, and it is. It's not the whole truth. Okay. Then the Hindus will give you the Merkaba model, and they'll say that's the universe. It's an island, Bhumandala, Jambudweep, and Mount Meru is in the middle, the magnetic blue lapis lazuli mountain made of gold, and Brahma sits on the top at the North Pole at Jambudweep, and with Brahma and all the gods in the Brahmajyoti and in the Brahmaloka and what have you. Well, because that's describing the earthy parts of the model. Then the Jews come along and describe the airy parts, the tesseract, perhaps, I don't know. And then someone will do the watery parts, the Taurus field. But it's all there. It's just that what you see today, you don't see tomorrow. You read a book one day and it's beautiful. Then you decide to read it the next day, and you didn't realize, did I read this book yesterday? I don't remember reading that.
Right, kind of jumps out at you. But in terms of more of, I think, more of a divine, or maybe more, I guess what I'm trying to get at is, if we're on this round globe and all the planets are globes and we're in this endless, I used to have a picture of the Hubble Deep Field behind me all the time until I replaced it with our logo. But, oh, you're laughing. But that tells us that we're one among gazillions of planets, and there's nothing special and there's nothing unusual about us or this plane or anything like that. Whereas the flat Earth, or plane, I should say, and I think you and I mentioned this. I talked to you. I was messaging you. This is like our globe model. It's really more like a snow globe, isn't it? Where we have like this firmament, and we have this plane here, and we're vertical on the plane, but there's this firmament here. So yeah, it's globe if you want to look at it globe that way. But what does it really tell us about what happens when we are kind of forced into this other globe model versus, and so in other words, what are they trying to do? What's the motive behind that versus what are we going to find out about ourselves, in other words, between, looking at the two different models ultimately?
Okay, well, you mentioned, as do many others, that the globe balls flying around in space, a la Big Bang, doesn't really make us special, whereas this one does. Well, I don't really see it that way. A lot of people mention this. Fair enough, I don't, because I know that other scriptures like Bhagavad Gita says that Brahma has created trillions of universes, and they're all special. So diversity doesn't mean not special. You know, quantity doesn't either. It can also equate to quality. Krishna makes many universes, the Mahaloka, Vishnu from his womb, Brahma, Shiva, the creator, the destroyer. There's many, many worlds and many dimensions, you see. But it doesn't, I don't believe that the other, it's just that the other model is an atheist model because it does not acknowledge an intelligent source and creator for this beautiful cosmos.
Okay.
It says unintelligence that was doing nothing suddenly decided to be intelligent. It decided to be creative and absolutely organize the whole chaotic realms, and it just doesn't make sense. It's pure fantasy, and that's what pseudoscience does. It gives people cognitive dissonance. They can't connect to the natural force of wisdom.
And it looks like with the whole concept of religion, they take principles of truth and then they adulterate it. And it seems like this has happened with this model as well. Because I'm not trying to suggest we are special. I just ask the question because I've heard a lot of, I've heard all of the counter arguments, or not all of them, but a lot of them. And I'm trying to present those in the scope of our conversation tonight. And we've gone 2 hours has flown by like this, and I knew it would. And I hope you're going to come back and join us again so we can continue this in more depth, because what I think we demonstrated here tonight is true synchronism, and how this conversation and all the ways, the intricate ways that these different, bless you, holy cow, bless you, you okay? How Santos was sneezing, but you couldn't tell because he was on mute, which was smart. So it really demonstrates how this philosophy of synchronism does tie in and unite all of these different disciplines and other philosophies as well. And it really kind of begs the question. It's why it's like the conversation of whether the earth is flat or round. We're so civil about this tonight, you know, and I don't think there's anything stopping people. We have a holiday, national holiday in the United States tomorrow on November 23rd, which is called Thanksgiving. I'm not going to get into the political correctness of this, but what happens at this time is people get around the dinner table with family and friends and they talk. And lots of conversations come up. There's all kinds of conversations. It's a time for talking, and and so I wanted to make a special so that we'd give viewers something interesting to talk about besides politics at the dinner table, at this big gathering of family and relatives and people that you do have some things in common with, but probably not really as much as you'd like. But this is the kind of conversation to have, and there's no reason why it can't be civil. But you have to be able to suspend your bias and what you were really just indoctrinated with, because we have been indoctrinated, no question about it. The question is, where do we go from here, Santos? Where do we go from here?
We go forward and sublimate, transform whatever gifts we've been given, stay on the path of truth, adore truth first and foremostly, because all other attributes come from that one principle. Truth is Tor Ruth, and the creator and the actor that we are is all about this authoring our own creation. So self-determination, consciousness, awareness, truth, knowledge, really expanding our consciousness. This sacred knowledge is how to go forward, how to transform our bodies with diet, better diet, better living habits, yoga, meditation, chanting, music, harmony, astrology, all the sciences, alchemy, spygerics, herbs, tissue salts, healing. This is what they were always doing forever and a day until empire came along. And empire is not necessarily a bad thing. Yeah, it's evil, but it's like a necessary evil. It happens, you know, it's what is.
But is it like this on other planets, though? I mean, do we have to...
Remember, what goes up comes down until we all learn to breathe in the center so that we ride the wave and keep centered, rather than being happy one day, woo, yippee, I'm so happy. Next day, oh, geez, I want to cut my wrists for stupid reasons. But people go up and down, up. But the Hermetic principle of rhythm, the Hermetist learns how to pull in the center, stay in the center, never be too excited, never be too joyful, contain that joy, keep it for the swing of the pendulum so that you can just smack that depression when it comes with that joy that you haven't spent. So you've got reserves in the tank, bang, you smack that depression pendulum of the swing, you stay in the middle. And so what you've got is, instead of going, woo, depressed, oh, happy, woo, depressed, what you do is you're going like this. You're keeping the power here, and then bang, and like a swing, when you to
right.
get momentum with a swing, you have to push it at the right part, at this sweet part of the arc. But if you get down here, and the swing comes back at you, and you hit it too abruptly, you just throw the wave out and you just knock all the energy out of that swing. Okay, so this is what you have to do. The swing will always come, cycles, bad, good, hot, cold. And if you stay in the middle with your mental force, you are the master. You have conquered the dragon, like Saint Michael.
It's really the idea of the sovereignty. You have to really be, you know, maybe you could explain that, because I think what I'm saying is we've been indoctrinated. We have to change our ways. We have to realize we've been indoctrinated. That's the first thing, and allow ourselves and reject, you know, this fascism, because it's really very extreme, and people really don't know how extreme it is, especially in the United States. And even people in the United States don't know how extreme it is. And the evidence of it is looking at all these, you know, false flags and all these, you know, engineered riots and things like that. And then the draconian laws that they use to implement, that they use those false flags to implement and take more control, more police state, more, you know, loss of freedoms, loss of this, terror attacks, 9/11, justify, Patriot Act, justify taking guns away, at least in the United States. It's just going to hell. I mean, and we need to stop. And we're going to, the globalists, the deep state, who's, by the way, getting a good kick in the cabals, if I should say, with, you know, President Trump, you know, we're hoping to clean this up, to change it so we can return to our sovereign natural state and natural being. But let me start working on closing this up. I don't even want it to stop. I feel like we could go for another 4 hours, but I know we need to stop. And the next time we're gonna take it from here. We're gonna keep going even further out. But let me ask Martin. Martin, you've sat so quietly and patiently, and I know you've enjoyed every minute. Do you have any closing comments, or do you have any questions or anything in general that you wanted to either comment that you wanted to make, or questions for Santos before we wind this up?
Well, I'm just going to say I'm in total agreement with what he just said, because that's what got me on this whole journey to begin with, was the fact that what I read 3 words in a book one time, and it said, "You need control." And I probably said this on your show almost every time I've been on this show, is the fact that I did a deep self-analysis of what controlled me. And I realized that there were systems that controlled what I did and who I did and what it was. And I learned that I needed to learn what those systems were to have control of my life. I needed to be able to control those systems. And this is what he's talking about here. with the things we need to learn are what the different systems are that have the effect of causing this sway we have of depression to excitement, to depression to excitement. If you can learn to be in control, we no longer have that wave from one to the other. We're not, and that goes back to extremism. It's one of the things we're taught is to be extreme. Oh, you've got to be really passionate this, or you're not going to get anywhere. And that has an opposite effect. If you're not really if you're really passionate about something and you fail, then you're really depressed because you were so excited about succeeding that when you failed, you went to the other side. So he's right. It's learning a balance of being able to have control of your emotions, have control of your actions, have control of your thoughts, have control. And that's what it's based on, is control. And I have to totally agree with what he said.
And which is really explaining the syncretism, isn't it, Santos?
Yeah, well, I mean, passion is like, if it's not controlled, it's like petrol or gas, as you call it there. It's very handy, but it's not handy in your garden on your plants. It's got to be put in the channeled in the right thing, like in your car, so you can put your foot on the gas and go from A to B. So passion is like this, you see. So you don't want to waste it here and in the wrong areas. You've got to hold that petrol for when you need an emergency for your car, and it's a reserve. It's not to be thrown into the garden. It's not to be, you don't leave the lid off so it evaporates. You protect that reserve. And so it's the same with your happiness. As soon as you're happy, don't think, oh, wow, I'm going to be happy forever now and I'm just going to enjoy it and show everybody and just expend my happiness and express it. Yes, it's good to express it, but watch how you do it. Because you could be just over-expressing it and overdoing it, and depression will come a smack bang as hard as the happiness did. So hold a bit, don't waste it, don't throw it in the garden, don't put your foot on the juice too much, just hold it and contain it, because it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, and it doesn't get it's more stable. It doesn't get as so mutable, coming and going, and you never know when you're going to be happy next or sad next.
But it's by design, though. I mean, it's like by design that it's put us in this, like, chaotic, spasmodic kind of, we're so busy just trying to take care of our day-to-day needs. I mean, so many of us are in survival mode that, you just, so the idea of trying to stay balanced and centered. So here we have this idea of meditation. Then would you recommend, and what kind of meditation? How do you meditate, and how do you meditate? And what do you recommend to people? Because they could really use some, and myself too. I mean, I'm always distracted. I mean, trying to meditate is kind of like, if I do it late at night, I fall asleep. So I know I have to do it during the day when I'm awake, and but not when I'm in the middle of the day when I'm already involved in so many other things. So it really should be like first thing in the morning for me personally, but for other people it might be different. But what can you recommend?
Yeah, meditation, of course, is the supreme way to correct and transmute all the things you don't like about yourself or want to improve, because you go to the quietness where you can contemplate objectively everything correctly and see, by being alone with yourself and letting your mind see you properly and honestly, and then you'll know what to do. But many other modalities are available. Music, learn to play a musical instrument, learn a language, learn astrology. All day long, I am chanting, singing, dancing, playing the guitar, doing syncretism, meditating all day long. There's not a moment. I do not have jobs. I don't do jobs. I do work, good work, alchemical work. That's why I came here. That's why we all came here. Jobs are just underbroke. They're a diversion. Empire created the concept. No one is supposed to regimentedly do 9 to 5. No one's supposed to do jobs. It's unnatural. It's totally unnatural. There's no, yet we're supposed to work. Birds wake up in the morning, we wake up, we go and forage, get some food, we go and play a concert of music for our friends, we go and dig some potatoes, we work.
But we have to take care of ourselves. So in terms of maintenance of our system, for our own, biological system that we each inhabit, our vessel, we have to maintain that. So yes, in terms of the maintenance of our vessels, and that's been, also, I would say, hijacked by design too, by forcing us into this, what you're saying is this unnatural system that messes up our circadian rhythms and things of that nature too. And you're right. And, maybe you could, maybe next time, and I don't know if you, feel, I don't know if you like, being spontaneous and improv, but maybe next time you could grab your guitar and play us out as we finish up our interview, or maybe next time you could do that for us. So we'd love to hear some of your music.
Yeah, for sure. I usually like to warm my fingers up because, well, like anything, a sportsman likes to warm up his calves and hamstrings. Just but I can do that for sure. I've been doing it all my life. I've never really included syncretism in my musical work with syncretism directly in any presentation, and other than to describe and explain things about music which I know, which are helpful for syncretism, but it is a part of it. To be a complete philosopher and syncretist, you must know many crafts and arts and modalities of life expression. You can't be continually just embracing ignorance and not wanting to know the science of light. So, yeah, the more the better. Music.
Now, in meditation, the Om is chanted, which is a tone. It is a frequency, and that unites, and aligns all the frequencies in the body. So it makes perfect sense that this is completely related to music, because the music, and of course I'm a musician and I play the piano, but I'm a composer. So for me, I understand the harmonics and the harmony, and musicians do as well. I mean, understand harmonics and harmony, things like that. And there's no greater therapy for me than sitting in front of my piano, which is like my vibration box, and just, recalibrating. And I think that's what it does. I mean, it recalibrates the frequencies that you've experienced throughout your day, like you said. And I'm just trying to give some background to what you're saying, because throughout your day, you get attacked. Well, we have all these electromagnetic frequencies. We have frequencies, radiation from our computers. We have so much bombarding us. It's so hard to stay in tune. It's so hard to stay in that, I hate to say status quo, because that's such a political term, but you said balance, stay in balance. But I can't imagine us having this conversation without experiencing some toning, some music, some examples of synchronism. And I think music is an example of synchronism. And so next time, I mean, unless you want to, I could always put this on pause and give you a few minutes to warm up, or we could just do it next time. You just let me know which.
I'll have a go next time. Thanks.
Very good. Very good. Yeah. I know. I don't usually, I'm doing this thing called Fishbowl, which is kind of like a little gathering on Zoom. I started doing it at my 100th GoldFish report, which was, well, this is 160 today. This is our 160th. So, GoldFish report, but on our 100th, we did this little special fishbowl where a bunch of our previous guests joined us, and some brought their guitars and sang and strung along, and we just hung out, had a good time, because this was a really eclectic group of people who didn't even know each other or never met, but knew of each other, and had a great time just kind of shooting the breeze and sitting around with the guitar. And it was just beautiful. It was just really beautiful. And I really can't wait to do it again. And I have to slow down and take it easy too a little bit, but this is exciting stuff. And Santos, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I'm so glad that we had this chance to meet you and to discuss these incredible topics that I feel like we just scratched the surface on these things.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean,
That's
you go far deeper into these topics. I've heard on previous interviews you've done. Yeah. And what I like about it is finding the relationships between everything. And when I find them, I try to put those things together. And that's what syncretism is. I mean, I can't even tell you how synchronous this is that we talk about this. But did you have any final thoughts or anything that we talked about today, or any final comments that on the things that we talked about that maybe I didn't bring up that you wanted to comment on for our viewers?
Not really. I think that was well rounded out, and we were able to thoroughly, address a lot of stuff. That was pretty good. Well, which is unusual. Sometimes you feel like you didn't say much. So we covered a lot, and yeah. Any questions next time dealing with sovereignty, science, astrology, and just general, human knowledge and how to syncretize it? We can do anything like that, you see, because, well, that's what we are, really. We are syncretists. I've proven that syncretism was and is the universal operating system of energy expression in the world, and all sacred books are just trying to interpret that for us and help us along the way to get to know God and to love God, which is us in the higher, in the unlimited, because here we are limited and conditioned. And so we need to get to know that one, which is who we are. We are one. We are inconceivably one with difference. That's what the relationship with us and God is. We are inconceivably one with God with difference. So rather than celebrating the difference and the individuality and the separateness in the terms of atheism, because there's nothing wrong with individuality and diversion and separatism and what have you, but when it becomes disconnected from source and unity, then everything goes unbalanced. So that's what syncretism does. Gets you in touch with the higher consciousness, so you realize that we are all within the same consciousness field. So that's namaste.
Namaste. Well, let me tell you, thank you so much. What a pleasure this has been for me, and I think Martin. I know that you were just enthralled by listening to all of this. So
I was.
Thank you so much for co-hosting with me today. And Santos, it was such a pleasure. Thank you so much. I look forward to having you back on GoldFish Report, and we can go into more of the astrology. And I mean, there's so many, as you said, the topics that we didn't get to really talk about today that you go into great detail about, and you bring together, you synchronize, and we just love it. So thank you so much for joining us today. And any links with Santos's website, these links are going to be put in the description section of this video. Yeah. And do you have an email, or somebody has questions, they can contact you in an email, or just at the website? There's one on the website. They want to reach you. Yeah. That's the best place. Okay. Very good. So folks, I hope you enjoyed this very thought-provoking and challenging. And I hope that I was presenting this in a fair manner. And I'm not, trying to shove an issue on anybody, but I'm a researcher. So for GoldFish Report, it's about asking the questions and trying to be unbiased and removing our biases. And it's not an easy thing to do, but we ask that everybody try, and we hope you've enjoyed this presentation, because Santos will be back again. So having said that, I want to thank you so much, Santos and Martin, and this concludes this edition of the GoldFish Report.